Hello, Math 006, and congratulations, you made it to the very last video of this class, 11.2, the quadratic formula. If you don't know what the quadratic formula is, it's going to be this right here that we can see. It's used to solve these quadratic equations. We need to use this when we're not able to factor it or we're not able to use the principle of square roots. And now we're going to use this. And it's going to start, well, once we have the quadratic in standard form, meaning everything set equal to 0, we can use the coefficient of the x squared, the coefficient of the x, and the constant term to substitute them into this formula to find our solutions. The nice thing about the quadratic formula is you can use it to solve any single quadratic that's out there. And even on the ones we solved before by factoring, you could still use this. Okay, you can read through these. That tells us about the quadratic. And we want to solve this. When necessary, write your answer reduced fractional form, provide the exact solution and the approximate to 2 decimal places, verify using your calculator graphically. Okay, so let's just go ahead and dive into some examples here. So number 1, 3x squared minus 11x equals 4. First thing we have to recognize, is this in standard form? We think no, because the constant is on the wrong side. So what we have to do first is subtract 4, because we need everything to be on one side. So we have 3x squared minus 11x minus 4 equals 0. Now we have it in standard form. So now we can identify what our a is, what our b is, and what our c is here. Our a is going to be 3. It's whatever the coefficient of x squared. The b is going to be negative 11, and the c is going to be negative 4. And now what we're going to do is take those values and substitute them into the quadratic formula. So we have x equals negative b. Well, here the b is negative 11, so that's what we have to substitute in, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 11 squared, minus 4 times a times c, and this whole thing is divided by 2 times our a. Now we just need to start simplifying. So the first one, the opposite of a negative 11 is a positive 11, plus or minus, oops, I need to actually move this down a little bit. Okay. So x is equal to positive 11 plus or minus. Now we have to do a negative 11 squared. Make sure you use parentheses if you're typing in your calculator that way. So we have the square root of 121 minus, and now we have to do 4 times 3 times a negative 4, which is going to give us a negative 48. So I'm just going to make this plus 48 over 2 times 3 is 6. Now we have to take 121 plus 48 inside that square root. So we get x is equal to 11 plus or minus the square root of 169 over 6. The square root of 169, well, 169 is a perfect square of 13, so we have 11 plus or minus 13 divided by 6. Now, we're going to keep going. It says, when necessary, write your answer reduced fractional form, provide the exact solution and the approximate. We need to do the math, if you will, and calculate what this is going to be. So this is going to be 11 plus 13 divided by 6 and 11 minus 13 divided by 6. So we have to do 11 plus 13, which will give us 24 divided by 6, which is going to give us an answer of 4. And then we have to do 11 minus 13, which is negative 2. And so we're getting a negative 2 over 6, which is a negative 1/3. So therefore, our answers here are x is equal to 4 and a negative 1/3. And now it says verify your solutions graphically. So you can do this one of two ways. You can type this into your calculator into y1, and you can type this into your calculator into y2, and those two lines will cross at the x value of 4 and negative 1/3. The other way you can check it is type this into your calculator, well, I'm sorry, the left-hand side of this anyway, into your calculator, and these should be the zeros. So go ahead, pause the video, choose one of those methods, and check the answer. You'll see that these two, when you check it graphically, they do work. So now let's go ahead and look at number 2. Actually, I'm going to have you pause the video and work through number 2 on your own. Then check your answers when you're done. Okay, you can see the first thing I did here is put this equation into standard form. Again, when standard form also means you need to have it in descending order. If you do not put it in descending order, you're going to mix up your A, B, and your C. And then I substitute all my values in and I work through simplifying it. I know the square root of 45 is the same as 3 root 5, so I substitute that in. This would be the exact solution right here, and it is as reduced as possible. And then once you calculate this, so you do negative 3 plus 3 root 5 divided by 2, and negative 3 minus 3 root 5 divided by 2, you get these decimals here. And it tells us 2 decimal places, which we did here. So exact and approximate. So you want to read carefully with what the question is asking. Okay, the next one. We are continuing to do the same exact thing that we have been doing. The difference is it's going to take a little bit more now to put them into standard form. So for this one here, we'd have to distribute the x on the left, distribute the 3 on the right, then get all your terms to one side. Looking at number 5, again, you'd have to distribute, get everything over. Number 6, what you have to do here is you have to clear your fractions first. So let's actually go ahead and work through number 6. In order to clear the fractions, we need to multiply by else the least common denominator. So we need to clear the fractions and we multiply by the least common denominator, which in this case would be x squared. So we need to distribute an x squared to both sides. So here we'd have x squared times 4, which would give us 4x squared. And then we'd have x squared times a negative 3 over x. Well, this x here is going to cancel with the 1 up top there, and then we're left with a minus 3x equals, and then on the right-hand side, the x squared cancel, we're left with 5. Now we just need to move our 5 to the other side, and now we have 4x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0. So now we have our standard form with a being 4, b is negative 3, and c is negative 5. Now go ahead and work through the quadratic formula. And it says write your answer in reduced radical form. So here you do not have to give the approximates, just writing it in reduced radical form. So go ahead and work through these problems. Like I said, you have to make sure you put everything in standard form first, which is everything on one side in descending order. And then as you get stuck, unpause the video and check to see where your mistakes are. Okay, you can go ahead and check all your answers with my answers. And then pause the video if you need to, see if you can find any mistakes that you may have made. Make sure you're checking everything graphically. Keep in mind, if you have an I in your answer, that means it's an imaginary number and it will not cross the x-axis at all. For example, number 4, you get negative 2/7. That means it's only crossing at that spot, meaning that's where the vertex of that parabola will be. So go ahead, look through everything and let me know what questions you have. Similar to how I started number 6 here, where you need to clear similarly as to how we approach number 6 on this page here by clearing the fraction. Okay, and on the last page here, we just have 2 examples, and they're both going to be our application problems. So I'll at least get you started on these, but then I want you to try them out on your own. Number 7 talks about an object is thrown from a cliff that's 190 feet above the ground, and then it gives it this formula here. They're just telling us this 190 is this 190. That's where it's the height it's being thrown from. And we want to find the time, so we want to find the t. We're going to let h be 0 because if you're standing on the ground, your initial height is 0. And if they're throwing something up and it's coming back down. And we want to find the time it takes for that object to come back to the ground. So you are going to be using the quadratic formula with these values. And then in number 8, they're talking about the braking distance, reaction distance, and stopping distance. You can see here they have the reaction distance plus the braking distance is going to be that total stopping distance. And it tells us that stopping distance is going to be 500 feet. This is the equation that it's giving us here with the stopping distance going to be 500. This one you'll have to approach. So go ahead, read all of these word problems and then start working through them and come back and check your answers. Okay, you can see the work here. We used the quadratic formula. Once I got to this step right here, I just used my calculator and I found these 2 values here. We're looking for the time it would take something that's thrown to come back down to the ground, and we know it's not going to be a negative, so we're going to go approximately 5.98 seconds because it says nearest hundredth of a second. The next one talks about the stopping distance of a vehicle. So we have this equation here. We need to clear our fraction, so we multiply everything by 9 to get this, get everything to one side, and we have our A, our B, and our C. We use the quadratic formula. Again, once I get to this point, I use my calculator, and it says to the nearest mile per hour. We get approximately 53 miles per hour, or a negative 86, which we know that's not going to be it, so positive 53. That is all we have for 11.2. So please, if you have any questions, reach out to me. And if not, good luck on the homework. And don't forget to start studying for your test. Good luck.